Okay, so welcome to Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, the abridged code of Jewish law, chapter 122. I did actually want to have gotten a little bit into this chapter last week, but unfortunately the hotel we're at didn't have the best Wi-Fi reception. But here we are, chapter 122, Dinim Min Shiva Asa B'Tammuz Ad Tisha B'Av. So these are the laws of between the 17th of Tammuz, which was Shabbos technically, although we observed the fast on Sunday because Shabbos overruled the fast, until Tisha B'Av, until the 9th day of Av. Okay. So, Aleph, number 1. Now, since the tragedies, the anguish of the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash technically started on the 17th of Tammuz, right? So as we mentioned, I think it was 2 weeks ago, on the 17th of Tammuz, that's when the walls of Jerusalem were pierced and the Romans entered into Yerushalayim, into Jerusalem. There was battle, hand-to-hand combat, block to block. Eventually, the Jews retreated and fortified themselves behind the walls of the Temple Mount. They were pierced on Rosh Chodesh Av, on the first day of Av, which is why we're going to see that the mourning that we're accustomed to do during these 3 weeks becomes a little more intense for the last 9 days from Rosh Chodesh Av. And then from the first day of Av until the 7th of Av, there was hand-to-hand combat up this hill, this small mountain, until they took control on the 7th of Av. And it was on the 9th of Av they set fire to the Beis Hamikdash. So, therefore, we have a custom, we are accustomed that we observe a little bit of mourning until after Tisha B'Av. And it's appropriate for anyone who fears heaven. Someone wants to be extra, should say a special prayer called Tikkun Chatzos. Pretty much no one says it today. It's a special prayer over the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. Most Sidurim don't even have it printed anymore, but it's still in some. So that's one thing we should do if you're able to. But that's, as we said, it's not so practical. People don't really say it today. But now we get to the more practical things. Ein nois noshim. We don't get married. Right? During the 3 weeks, we don't have weddings. Now, this is even someone who has not yet fulfilled the mitzvah of having children. Right? So we have a mitzvah puravul, literally to be fruitful, multiply. The mitzvah to have children. Technically, it means that we should have a boy and a girl who each have a boy and a girl. Right? That fulfills the mitzvah. Now, obviously, that's not always within our control. But ideally, that's the minimum. Why don't you keep trying until they've achieved that? And like any other mitzvah, you can have an esrog that is technically kosher, or you can have a very beautiful, fancy esrog. You can have tefillin or mezuzahs that are just technically cross the line and are kosher, and you fulfill the mitzvah. Or you can have a very mehuda one, a very beautiful one that goes well beyond the letter of the law. So even though the minimum requirement is a boy and a girl, the more the merrier. More the merrier. So the novelty here is that this custom of mourning overrules when a person has a mitzvah to have children. So even though he has the mitzvah to have children, and getting married is not a separate mitzvah, getting married is a part of the mitzvah of having children. So even though he hasn't yet had children, there's still this custom of the morning overrules that mitzvah 3 weeks, and he won't get married for these 3 weeks. However, you can make engagements, right? Although engagement is a happy time, it's not the same as a wedding, right? So, of course, the reason we're not having the wedding these 3 weeks, I mean, what greater joy is it than a wedding? A fil Basoudas, we can even have a little meal, feast at the engagement. So you can have this meal until the last 9 days. Now, from Rosh Chodesh Av, the first day of the Jewish month of Av and onwards, even though you're allowed to make shidduchim, you can make engagements. Nevertheless, you can't have a party, you can't have the feast. However, you can have some desserts, different things, just not washing and having a proper meal, a full seudah, full feast. Okay. Now, the next thing that we can't do, and we're already going to start with the exception. So there's presumption already that you know you can't do, and that is to listen to live music. And there are many who say that you should also not listen to recorded music. And I guess that's, to a certain degree, that's the spirit of the decree. Because when they made the decree, there was no such thing as recordings of music. There only was live music. So even though that the mourning that was put into place of the destruction of the temple of the Beis Mikdash was not listening to live music, but many people feel that, many rabbinic authorities feel that recorded music is in the same category. There are some that I would say it's a little bit lenient, because now those who have listened to recording and have gone to a concert, there's a difference, right? You can't compare the energy and the excitement to a live concert than to recording. So, they're not exactly the same thing. So in general, we try to be strict, but let's say a person's driving, they're going on a long drive, and, maybe they're feeling tired, and having some music will keep them awake, then we could be lenient. So we can't have music. Now, Yisrael Shbanosa Shaloi B'chli Zemer. You have a Jewish person, and his profession is he's a musician. He plays musical instruments, right? The bagpipes, let's pick, right? So during this 3-week period, until the last 9 days, he can play for non-Jews. Now, of course, he can't play for Jews because the Jews can't listen to the music. Now, the non-Jews don't have any obligation to mourn over the destruction of the temple, so you can play for them. Also, but from the first day of the Jewish month of Av, for these last 9 days of the mourning, then we can't even play for a non-Jew. And on the day of the 17th of Tammuz, 17th day of the Jewish month of Tammuz, the actual fast day, the first day of the 3 weeks, also you can't play because it's the fast day. And likewise, the fast that is the 10th day of the Jewish month of Tavis, usually in December or January sometime. Depends. Yes.
You said the musician is allowed to play music?
So if that's his profession, then he can play for non-Jews.
non-Jews, but he's listening himself to the music.
Okay, but for him, it's not a pleasure; it's a job.
He probably enjoys it more than the other people.
Could be he does, but someone who plays every evening professionally doesn't have the same pleasure as someone else who.
So to non-Jews is allowed.
Correct, because they don't need to mourn. Now, the last point, so he brings a custom that very few Jewish people keep. Well, to this extent, we keep it, not to this extent. He's saying that we don't eat meat or drink wine for the entire 3 weeks, with the exception of Shabbos or a meal that's a mitzvah. The generally accepted custom amongst Ashkenazim is that we will eat meat and drink wine for 3 weeks, except for the last 9 days. The last 9 days, we refrain from eating meat or drinking wine, except for Shabbos, and except for a meal of a mitzvah, Basoudas Mitzvah. So let's say a bris or a pidyon ben. Okay, people aren't getting married, but normally a wedding would be a Basoudas Mitzvah. Or someone makes a siyum on a mesechta, they do a completion of a tractate of the Talmud, right, which is a huge undertaking. So these would be examples. So that, as I said, the general accepted custom amongst Ashkenazim is that we eat meat and drink wine until the last 9 days, till Rosh Chodesh Av, the first day of the month of Av, and then we refrain from eating meat or drinking wine, except for Shabbos or a mitzvah. Now, the Sfarim, generally speaking, Sfarim continue to eat meat and drink wine until the actual week that Tisha B'Av falls out in. Okay. Right, so just to sum it up, 3 things that we don't do for the entire 3 weeks. One that we didn't say yet. We're going to say it not in number 2, but in number 3. And that's we don't get haircuts. But the 2 we said now is we don't have weddings, although we can have engagements. And we don't listen to music. And then for the last 9 days, we don't eat meat or drink wine. Base number 2. We have a custom that we won't say Shechianu during these days. And again, perhaps not Shabbos, we're going to say when and when not. Now, it's not a prohibition. So if someone's put in a situation where they do need to say Shechianu. So let's say, for example, again, pidyon ben, the redemption of the firstborn. This is the 30th day after his child got born. His first child was born, so he can't postpone it. You can still have redemption of firstborn as long as they're still alive. If they miss the 31st day after 30 days. But ideally, we're meant to do it on the correct day. So he would say Shechianu. That's what it is. But if we don't have to, we have a custom, we don't say Shechianu, because we say Shechianu on things that make us happy. And during these days, we're having a little bit of mourning. So therefore, let's look at some practical ways. How do we implement? We don't buy or wear new clothes. Now, today, generally speaking, we don't say Shechianu on new clothes, unless it's a very fancy piece of clothing, because we have lots of clothes. Getting new clothes isn't so exciting for us anymore. In the old days, people had one set of Shabbos clothes and one set of weekday clothes. And they wore their weekday clothes for 6 days. And they washed it on the Thursday, whether it needed washing or not. And they put on their Shabbos clothes. And that was it. And if you got a new piece of clothing, once a year or something, it was exciting. So a person would say Shechianu. So that was then. Nowadays, thank God we live a much higher standard of living materially, and most of us have many sets and changes of clothing. So to buy a new shirt, we don't get excited. We don't get all excited and say Shechianu. Maybe someone gets a talus for the first time, maybe a very, very expensive suit or something. There might be something that a person might still say Shechianu on. But, generally speaking, we don't say Shechianu on clothes. But something that we would say Shechianu on, we wouldn't buy or wear for the first time during the 3 weeks. Because when you wear it, you'll need to say this Shechianu, a special blessing, to thank Hashem in joy that we've lived to reach this occasion. But as we said, a pidyon a ben, the redemption of the firstborn, you do say Shechianu. It's a mitzvah. We don't want to sour the mitzvah by leaving out the broth. Now, the al peri, let's say you have a new fruit, the first time you eat a fruit for that season. So let's say grapes, the new grapes of the season. You only ate last year's grapes. So normally, the first time you eat a fruit that season, again, we say Shechianu, we thank Hashem that we've lived to this new exciting time where we have the fruit back in season. The al peri on fruit, so leniency number 1, we will allow people to say Shechianu on the new fruit on Shabbos. So in the honor of Shabbos, we'll have a nice fancy new fruit, and we'll say Shechianu. That's leniency number 1. Leniency number 2, even during the weekday, if you're not going to come across this new fruit again until after Tisha B'Av, it's you won't have it again afterwards. You miss the opportunity. So, for an example, yesterday I was at somebody's house. We had a meeting with some educators, part of the tour for Jewish educators that I've been doing in Israel, learning experience. And the person whose house we had this luncheon has an esrog tree. And the esrogim that you buy for sukkahs, that they sell commercially, because they want to get the greatest amount of produce, to sell as many as possible, there's far more pesticides on it than normally goes into fruit that you eat. So forget about those who would like to avoid pesticides. Even those who don't mind pesticides, these have, because they're not grown for eating. So they don't care to essentially poison it, as long as there's no bugs and they get to sell more. So although many people like to make a marmalade or a jam, some type of jelly out of esrog, you have to be very careful because they're just, 3 layers of fruit and 6 layers of pesticides. But this person grew in his yard and grew esrog in his yard, and there's no pesticides. And it's he served us some. So it was during the 3 weeks, but we're all going back, tonight. Most of the people are left already, gone to other countries, and the rest of us are leaving in a few hours. That's it. When are we going to eat fresh esrog again? So we were allowed to say, Shechianu, eat the new fruit, and say Shechianu on the fruit. So if it's during the weekday, so Shabbos, you can say Shechianu, no problem on a new fruit. And even during the week, if you're not going to come across this new fruit again after Tisha B'Av, then we can be lenient during the week as well. Lo yakor talmidim habanim b'yom ha'elu. And teachers shouldn't use corporal punishment on the students or parents on their children during the 9 days. Right? So generally today, it's not really acceptable for teachers to hit their students even not during the 9 days in most places in the world. But if we look at it as parents, obviously parents shouldn't be hitting their kids every 5 seconds, and it probably shouldn't be their first recourse for putting structure for their children. But there's a time and a place. Someone gave an example, to illustrate the point. An alien floats down from somewhere, and he sees 2 children playing in the freeway, having a good time. And the mothers of each of these 2 children come by, and one grabs their child out of the freeway and raises their voice and slaps him, says, "Don't ever do that again." And the other mother says to the child, "Oh, Bubala, you're having such a good time. Keep playing, enjoy." So the alien who doesn't know how Earth works, which parent does it seem to him loves their child more? Right? It seems to the alien that the parent who lets their child play in the freeway and is encouraging their self-expression seemingly loves their child more. Now, those of us who live on Earth, we understand that it's actually the other way around. Right? If you love your child, you don't let them play in freeways. And so, there's a time and a place. But even in a time and a place, during these 9 days, where many tragedies have happened to the Jewish people over the years, and I don't want to say it's an unlucky time for us, because we don't believe in luck in that way. There's not a Jewish concept, but it's a time where there's negative spiritual energy, but we have to be extra careful. So even when it may have otherwise been appropriate, give a child a slap or something, but not during the 9 days. Okay.
But there is a concept of mazel in Judaism.
Well, yes and no. How's that for a good Jewish answer?
Well, we just learned something about the Rebbe.
I understand. It's a good Jewish answer. It's like the person comes to the rabbi and says, why do Talmudic scholars always answer a question with another question? Which says, why do you want to know that? But so when I say yes and no, I mean, yes, there's such a thing as mazel. Now, it's not really like luck, as we say in English. Mazel is certain spiritual energies. That's what it is.
They
now,
say the Matif brings mazel.
Yeah,
brings the
mazel
mazel
down. So mazel means there's certain spiritual energies that can be positive or negative. And
could be negative too. I didn't know.
Yeah, that's right. Correct. Positive or negative. Jews generally are able to transcend mazel.
So if somebody wishes you mazel, you don't know what he's wishing you.
Now, when someone says mazel tov, they don't really mean. Again, lack of better translation, we put it as good luck. Mazel tov means your life should go smooth.
Okay.
That's really what it means. You shouldn't have too many ups, and you can have the ups, but not the downs.
Not too many downs.
That's really what mazel tov is.
Okay.
And so when I say yes and no, yes, there is such a thing as mazel, and it's why we don't do these things. There is such a thing as negative spiritual energy, but I just want to emphasize that a Jew has the ability to totally transcend and be unaffected by mazel by being connected to our source, right? Because it's a little bit like let's take an example. someone's buying something from a store, and there's a waiting list, right? So in the store there's a waiting list. Now, someone who knows the owner of the company can go right to the top, skip the salesman, the manager of the salesman, the manager of the whole area of 5 stores, and go straight to the owner of the company and just skip the entire queue and get one immediately. So a Jew has the potential through Torah mitzvahs to be connected directly to Hashem, and therefore the different spiritual energies that Hashem creates that have influenced the world don't necessarily have influence on us. We bypassed it. We've gone straight to the source. That's why I said yes and no. But nevertheless, we be careful.
Thank you, Rebbe.
It's okay. You're welcome. Gimel number 3. We don't get haircuts during these days, during the 2 weeks. Not a head, not the hair of our face, not any hair on our body. But also, like doing the Safas Getanim, and adults can't give haircuts to children. Now, even though children, younger children, don't have the ability to really understand the concept of mourning and to appreciate it, it's sort of meaningless. But nevertheless, we don't give them haircuts. Dalit. However, a mustache. If it holds back your food, it's getting in the way. Nearly, said it appears to me, we could be lenient and we could trim our mustache until the actual week Tisha B'Av falls out in. But the week that Tisha B'Av falls out in other words, from the Saturday night onwards to whatever day during that week Tisha B'Av falls out. And this year, Tisha B'Av is a Shabbos, so it's actually we're going to observe the fast on the Sunday. So there's really no week that Tisha B'Av falls out in. So therefore, once we're in that week, we shouldn't even trim our mustache.
So is this week because we fasted on Sunday?
Yeah, but that was the fast, the 17th of Tammuz.
Right.
So this is not till, so you can trim your mustache. So now already people shouldn't be getting haircuts. Okay. And then, but you can still trim your mustache if it gets in the way. Okay. Ladies who cover their hair for some reason, it's sticking out and various things, they can also trim. Hey, number 5. Cutting your nails. This is both your fingernails and toenails. There's no prohibition. Only the week that Tisha B'Av falls out in, that's when we don't cut our nails. But for the rest of the 3 weeks, we can cut our nails. No one really, people get a little bit excited about having their hair done. No one really gets excited about having, my nails are trimmed. It's not a problem. Now, if a woman is going to the mikveh, it's the time she's meant to go, then even the week that Tisha B'Av falls out in, she's allowed to cut her nails. Also, the moil, a person who does circumcisions, even though it's not a circumcision, right? Because circumcision is a round cut and a bris is a straight cut. But the person does a bris can trim their nails to the priya. Just to explain what happens. On a baby, when it comes to the bris, there's 2 layers. There's the skin, the foreskin, the orla, the foreskin, and that's cut with a knife. Then underneath there's a very thin membrane, which, cutting with a knife is not going to be, it's too much, right? It'll cut into the actual part of the body there. So what happens is a moil normally has a smooth, sharp thumbnail, and they just with their thumbnail they break the membrane off. If for some reason a person didn't have a bris, those people that were in Russia and different things that weren't able to, as they get older, the membrane grows onto the skin, and then when they do the bris, that comes off as well. But in a baby, it's totally separate, and so the male, he's allowed to trim his nail, even the week that Tisha B'Av falls out in, because he wants to have a very smooth and sharp. Wants to be able to break the membrane without causing unnecessary pain. Okay. Number 6. Now, the 3 Shabbases that we have between the 17th of Tammuz and Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av. So this Shabbos is the first of these 3 Shabbases. Maftirim Telasa Dafar Musa. We have 3 special haftarahs. Now the haftarah, sure most people are familiar, but just in case, during the time of the Greek occupation, right, pre-Hanukkah, one of the things that they banned was reading the Torah on Shabbos. So we weren't allowed to read the Torah on Shabbos. So what did we do? Right? We didn't want the concept of Torah reading to be forgotten. So people started to read a section of the prophets that had a similar theme. And that's why when you look at the Haftarah, the reading of the prophets after the Torah reading, there's always some type of connection. Usually it's very obvious. Sometimes it's not so obvious, but usually it's very obvious. There's a similar theme. And this was done for quite a few years. After the victory of the Maccabees, and we eventually able to regain independence and keep mitzvahs properly, and we started reading the Torah again on Shabbos, they kept the Haftarah because they've been doing it for so long. And, we still say it till today. So during these 3 weeks, though, we don't say the Haftarah that's connected to the Pasha. We say the Haftarah that has to do with consolation. Well, not consolation, with the prophecies of the destruction. Right? After Tisha B'Av, then we have 7 weeks of consolation. But these 3 weeks, you read prophecies about the destruction of the Beis Mikdash. Shehain, so what are they? The Divrei Yirmiyahu, these are the words of prophet Yirmiyahu, Jeremiah. Shimel Devar Hashem, that's the next, also from Yirmiyahu, next Haftarah. Chazon Yeshayahu, and then we have the third one, is the Shabbos Chazon, and this was a vision of Yeshayahu, the prophet Yeshayahu. Simonim, the Shach, and we've got a little acronym to remember them. So 3 special Haftarahs. Okay. Now, being that I was in Israel last Shabbos, and Israel is a Pasha ahead, so they read Pinchas last Shabbos, and they did the Haftarah Pinchas. This Shabbos, outside of Israel, we're going to read Pinchas, and we're not going to read the Haftarah Pinchas. Actually, the Haftarah Pinchas is hardly ever read, and we're going to read the Divrei Yirmiyahu, these words of prophecy of Yirmiyahu. So that's if you were paying enough attention. However, the person made a mistake. They forgot. They didn't know. They just looked in the Chumash, and it says the Haftarah Pinchas. And instead of this first week, instead of reading the first of these special 3 Haftarahs, he read the Haftarah of the week.
What?
The regular one, the Pinchas. Now what happens?
No, it's the teacher who teaches from a group of the Shulchan.
Yeah. So this is what happened. He's
Good that I'm-
read the wrong one. And nobody's perfect. We all make mistakes. Right? Only Hashem is absolutely perfect. So now what do we do? So the next week we read 2 haftarahs. Right? Read 2 haftarahs. And then so week 1 we didn't read the first special one, we read the regular Shabbos. So week 2, to catch up, we read 2. Week 1 special and week 2 special. We can do this because they're actually very close to each other. They're almost consecutive. Okay. So that's one issue, and we catch up. Next potential mix-up, Chal Rosh Chodesh Av is b'Shabbos. Now, if Rosh Chodesh Av, the first day of the month of Av, falls out on a Shabbos, now we know there's a special haftarah when Shabbos and Rosh Chodesh coincide. So if this happens, we've got 2 special haftarahs competing with each other, both of which overrule the normal week's haftarah. But which one of these 2 overrules each other? That's the question. So what do we do? Maftirim Hashemayim Kisi. We say the Rosh Chodesh one. Sorry. Yet there are other people who read the 3 weeks one. So each place is going to go according to their custom. Right? It's doesn't happen very often. It's not happening this year, but that's what happens. Okay. So until now, we've been speaking about the 3 weeks, the entirety of the 3 weeks. Number 8, we're going to speak about the 9 days, the last 9 days. As we said, this is when the Romans broke into the Temple Mount, and it was a terrible tragedy. There was hand-to-hand combat up this hill, this little mountain. It should really take, let's say, 45 minutes to walk up, if you're taking your time. And it took 7 days for them to fight, hand to hand. And the Talmud tells us that there were so many lives lost in this battle, the 7-day battle, that there was a stream of blood running down the rock face, and the Roman officers, their horses, the blood went up to their noses, the nose of the horse. That was an absolute tragedy. So because we, break into Temple Mount, even close to the destruction, and the amount of lives that were lost on the Temple Mount, so we increase the mourning during the last 9 days of these 3 weeks. The ches number 8. There's custom amongst all Jews, emphasizes all Ashkenazim, not to eat meat or drink wine during these 9 days. Shemin Rosh Chodesh ad la'achar Tisha B'Av, 9 days, meaning from Rosh Chodesh Av, the first day of the month of Av, until after Tisha B'Av. Now, there's not only actual meat itself, but even something that was cooked meat in it. So, for example, a soup, even if it's strained and there's no meat in it, or if there's shuman, there's fat, there's schmaltz. So, even if we cook something with chicken schmaltz, something, so even though it's not actually chunks of meat, but it has a meat flavor. and not only red meat, but even poultry. Chickens, ducks, geese. Also is not allowed. Okay, so that's in general. However, we have someone that dairy foods damages them. They have an allergy. So, there's very minor allergies. There's very minor symptoms, and a person can probably, tough it out for a week. But some people have very severe allergies. They become ill, God forbid, even worse. So what do? They're allowed to have poultry. They still shouldn't eat red meat, but they can have chicken and various things. I mean, today perhaps not so. There's so many pair of meat alternatives available, and other proteins. So perhaps today we might not give someone this leniency, but before they had pea protein and soy protein and all these various things, someone couldn't eat dairy, they were stuck. So they could eat poultry. So that's the healthy. They just have this allergy. Next case, let's say what about someone who's not well? Again, not well doesn't mean a slight runny nose. It means someone who's, again, I'm also obviously not speaking about someone who's in a life-threatening situation. Someone who, God forbid, it's a life-threatening situation. We can do anything. We could even give them non-kosher if necessary. Hopefully no one would be in that situation. But if they needed to be, we could. But someone's not well, let's say they have a flu. They're in bed, they're not feeling well. The life's not in danger, but they're feeling really lousy. And maybe they need some chicken soup. So this chayla, this unwell person, kol mutter, everything's allowed. However, if it's not going to be too difficult meat, so if they need it, they can have anything. You can even have red meat, need be. But if they're able to, they're not that unwell, they should avoid it. They should abstain. At least not to have from the 7th of Av onwards. And as we said, the 7th of Av is when the Jews were defeated and the Romans took control of the Temple Mount. So from the 7th of Av, if they're able to, they should avoid the meat. This is both the person has the allergy and the person is not well. Again, if they're able to. And likewise, a pregnant woman. Right? So if she needs to eat meat during the 9 days, we allow her. But again, if possible, we try and avoid it from the 7th of Av onwards. What's significant about the 7th of Av? I mean, we explained it, but his first time is written here. On that day, on the 7th of Av, the non-Jews entered the actual temple, the Beis Hamikdash, and they actually desecrated. Did terrible things. Okay. Other exceptions, the Basoudas Mitzvah. So we have a meal that's a mitzvah. Going, for example, Milo, Pidyon Ben. There's a bris or a Pidyon Ben, the redemption of the firstborn. The Siyam Masechta is someone completes the learning of an entire tractate of the Talmud. Gam Kain with Torim Babasav Yain. So a person is allowed to eat meat and drink wine on those days. Now, not only let's say you have a bris, so besides the immediate family, or other people who have some connection to the mitzvah, Not only those people can eat meat and drink the wine at this Seudah, this special meal. You can even invite other people, invite your friends. So someone's finishing a tractate of the Talmud, he can invite his friends. Anyone who we would have invited if it was another time, meaning, let's say to the bris, I might invite everyone from my shul to come to the bris. So therefore, if it's during the 9 days, I can also invite everyone from the shul. They can come have meat there. But, I wouldn't normally invite every person who lives in the city. So we don't make an excuse. Oh, there's a bris. So let's invite the whole world, and the congregation will sponsor it so everyone can come eat meat. Right? That we don't do. Now, not only can we do this in the 9 days up to the 7th day, even the 7th and the 8th, right until midday of the 8th Erev Tisha B'Av. But not afterwards. We don't start eating meat the afternoon before Tisha B'Av. We don't celebrate. We don't have a Suda. The Suda Shinahagim Nasa is B'Layla Shnei. Now, ain't Basoudas Mitzvah. Now, a lot of people, it's not a universal custom, but it's quite common, called a Vachnacht, that the evening before the bris, so what happens is the father stays up. He's meant to try and stay up the whole night. So, thanks to Hashem, I have 6 boys. I never made it through the whole night once, right? Because it always ended up that the last day or so before the bris, before the birth, no one really got any sleep. And then the first few days after the birth also was very hectic and various things. When it came to the evening for the bris, I never made it through the whole night. So, but ideally, the father should stay up the whole night. And so what he does is he has a meal and he invites his friends round. Called the Vachnach, and they come round and sing songs, they learn Torah and different things, and to keep him company. So we should stay up. So that Suda, we're told it's a nice thing, but it's not really a mitzvah per se. So therefore, we can't serve meat at this meal during the 9 days. Other times you could, but not during the 9 days. And therefore you can't serve meat and wine at this meal. Rather, you should serve dairy. Okay. Next step. The Kaish shall have Dala Motzei Shabbos. So during these 9 days, you can have at least one Saturday night. And we make Havdalah. And Havdalah is made over a glass of wine. So what do? So, nice and nice. So, if there's a child who can drink the majority of the cup, we give it to him. Im love, and if not, person can who makes the Havdalah, he can drink it himself. Generally, it's what we do today, because it's not a good idea to give a large cup of wine to small children. So, in the old days, they drank more. When I was 25 years ago, there was a elderly gentleman he was well in his 80s, if not older, 25 years ago. So, although I'd be surprised if he's still with us, but hopefully he is. So he was telling me that when he was a small child in Russia, his father used to set up the sled in winter, and he poured them both a glass of methylated spirits and they said l'chaim, and then they went out to the cold, and they took the sled to shul. Right. So if you grow up drinking methylated spirits every day, I'm sure you can handle a glass of wine for $1. But most children today, it's probably not the best idea to give them a glass of wine. So generally speaking, the person who makes Havdalah drinks the wine themselves. Some people make Havdalah on beer or something during the 9 days, but it's not necessary. Okay. So Havdalah we can drink ourselves. Yes. Number 9. Now, we also don't do laundry during these 9 days. We put on freshly pressed, nice clean clothes. It feels a bit different now, especially in those days when people only had one set of clothes. Now, this is even clothes that we're not planning on wearing until after the fast. So we're not washing them to wear. We're washing them just that they should be clean. Now, we're going to mention exceptions soon, but the general rule is that we don't do any laundry during the 9 days. But even to give them, even not allowed to give them to a non-Jewish laundry or dry cleaner. However, if the Jewish person is the dry cleaner or the laundryman, you can wash clothes for non-Jews because they're allowed to wear clean clothes during the 9 days, and no one gets excited and feeling happy about washing other people's clothes. Now, even though you're allowed to do laundry for non-Jews, the week that Tisha B'Av actually falls out on, we should avoid this as well. Now, that's number 1, doing the laundry. Number 2, now during these days, we don't wear clean clothes that have been laundered. Now, I'm going to just clarify this before we even get further, because a lot of people, especially they haven't heard this before, they start to freak out. Well, we're going to wear the same clothes for 9 days. First of all, my little boys during the summer are quite happy to do that, but we leave that aside. The 9-10-year-old. But we mean like this. So the first thing is underwear doesn't count. Undershirt, underpants, socks, they're not considered clothes per se. They are worn to absorb sweat, right? So undergarments, a person can change every day. And perhaps those who live in Florida, where sometimes you go outside in the summer and it's like you had a shower from the effects of the humidity, maybe you change even more than once a day, if need be. Undergarments don't count. Now we're going to go through the way to do it, but I just want to give an overview. Now, outer garments. Now, most of us, let's say for example, a jacket, certain types of dresses, trousers. People don't wash them every time they wear them anyway, usually these things. So they can still be clean, and the person wears something they've worn before. Things like shirts or other things. So although we shouldn't wear them freshly cleaned, so a person can put them on the floor for a while, they can wear them a little bit before the 9 days. So let's say the day or two before the 9 days, people put on a shirt for half an hour and then change shirts. And therefore they've got several shirts that they have been worn for half an hour or something. So it's not freshly cleaned, freshly pressed. The Shabbos during the 9 days, again, during Shabbos, we can wear clean clothes. So someone can wear one shirt Friday night, another shirt Shabbos morning, another shirt Shabbos afternoon, and then he's got a shirt set again that he can wear for a day or so. So it's doesn't mean the person has to put on the same, lot of clothes and never change or wash, for 9 days, right? That would be rather uncomfortable for everyone else in their presence. Right? It's not what we're being told to do, but it's that fresh, cleaned / pressed feeling you have when you put something on. That's what we want to avoid. So as we said, this wearing clean clothes, well, this not being allowed to wear clean clothes does not apply to undergarments. And there's plenty of ways to have slightly pre-worn clothes, either wearing them for a little bit before the 9 days and the Shabbos during the 9 days, putting them on the floor for a little while. So this is what we do. So we don't wear the clean clothes. Rat l'kavod Shabbos, only in honor of Shabbos, the Shabbos during the 9 days, then will wear clean clothes. So we can put on clean linen garments, and we can spread fresh tablecloths on the table. After tapas yadayim voice, we can change our clean towels and hand towels. Exactly like we would do every other Shabbos. Right? Every other Shabbos, you put out all these lovely things, so we can do the same thing. Although today, actually, it's paper towels and plastic over the tablecloths and and paper napkins. So we actually it applies less nowadays. But in concept, whatever you would normally put out on Shabbos, that's what you can do. Okay. Also, this way she was in the Kim. Now, though we don't normally put clean sheets on the bed in the 9 days, put them on right before, right afterwards. But for the 9 days, we won't have the clean bed sheets, brand new clean ones. Having said that, a lady who for the 7 days where she's preparing to go to the mikveh, she needs white sheets. She's allowed to. Now, I'm also going to point out, but we'll read the next line and then we'll take a step further. Now, also, we're going to say diapers, in sure many of us can remember the days before disposable diapers, we used to have to wash them, right? So you can wash them constantly during the 9 days. You're allowed to wash now. They're also like this. Those who have children in the house, small children, sometimes clothes, they become soiled and various things. And if you don't wash them straight away, well, not necessarily straight away, but if you wait 9 days or wait a week, they're going to be ruined. They'll be permanently stained. And this applies to other things as well. If you have clothes that are going to become ruined, or sometimes you have wet things, and if they're just left wet, they become moldy and different things. But anything that's going to become ruined, you're allowed to wash. Or certain things, if you don't, it's been stained with if you don't get it out straight away, it'll never come out, or at least not properly. So things that are going to be ruined, you're allowed to wash. But things that that will be fine, so we set aside for the during the 9 days. So that's our close. Any questions? Okay. So we won't start the next one. I think we